The sky of Mirian was still burning when Lieutenant Daniel Cross opened his eyes. The jungle canopy above him glowed red with the reflection of fire, and the air smelled of smoke, metal, and blood. His head pounded as he struggled to rise. Around him lay the scattered wreckage of machines, both human and alien. The battle between Earth soldiers and the Sarathi Empire had ended hours ago, but Daniel knew there were no victors here, only survivors. He checked his sidearm, but it was cracked and useless. His communicator was gone, crushed under fallen stone. Alone, cut off from his unit, he had only his training and instincts to rely on. Every sound of shifting branches made his nerves tighten. The Sarathi patrols would still be searching. If they found him, he would not live to see another sunrise. Cautiously, Daniel began to move through the wreckage. The alien ship had crashed into the jungle not far from where he had fallen unconscious. Its twisted hull still smoked, and faint sparks glowed from broken panels. The Sarathi had been powerful enemies. Tall, scaled beings with eyes that gleamed like polished amber, known for their strength and discipline. Facing them on the battlefield had been terrifying, yet now their ship lay in ruins and many of their warriors were dead. As Daniel stepped over a fallen beam, he heard something. Soft, labored breathing. Instinctively, he crouched, one hand reaching for the knife at his belt. He moved closer, pushing aside pieces of shattered metal until he saw her. The figure lay against the broken interior wall of the alien vessel. Her scales shimmered faintly in the firelight, patterned in deep emerald and gold. A crown-like crest curved along her head, marked with glowing symbols. Even without knowing her face, Daniel recognized what she must be. The Sarathi Queen herself. Their commander. Their heart. He had heard rumors that she had led her forces personally, a rare act of pride and defiance. And here she was, wounded, half-conscious, her chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. For a moment, Daniel froze. This was the enemy leader, the very figure responsible for so many human deaths. His training screamed at him, leave her or end her life now. Yet another voice inside him, one that had guided him through every battlefield, whispered differently. She was bleeding, she was alive, and she was helpless. Daniel knelt beside her, his medic's instinct taking over. He examined the wound. A shard of metal had pierced her side, dangerously close to vital organs. Her breathing was ragged and her eyes fluttered weakly. Yet when they focused on him, they burned with defiance. Her lips moved, forming words in her language, sharp and commanding. Though he did not understand, the meaning was clear. Stay away. I don't know if you can understand me, Daniel said quietly. But if I don't help you, you're going to die. Her hand shot out, claws grazing his wrist, but there was no strength in the grip. She tried to push him back, but the effort only made her gasp in pain. Daniel gently freed himself, shaking his head. I'm not your enemy right now, he said. Not here. From his belt, he pulled a small med pack, one of the few pieces of gear still intact. Human technology was not designed for Sarathi biology, but some principles of medicine were universal. He worked carefully, steadying his hands despite the tension in his chest. The shard of metal had to come out, but the bleeding could be fatal. He glanced at her again. Her golden eyes narrowed, suspicious and proud, but she did not resist when he reached for the wound. With slow precision, Daniel removed the shard. The queen stiffened, her entire body tensing as though he had violated some sacred boundary. Her lips moved again, this time in a whisper, her voice trembling with both pain and something else, shock, maybe fear. Daniel could not understand her words, but the weight in her tone made him pause. Still, he pressed on, cleaning the wound and sealing it with a patch of biogel from his pack. It was a crude treatment, but it would keep her alive for now. When he finished, he sat back, breathing hard. Sweat clung to his brow. The queen's gaze fixed on him, unblinking. Then, with surprising strength, she spoke again, this time in halting but clear English. Only, my consort may touch me there? Daniel blinked, stunned. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. He had expected anger, perhaps even a final attempt to kill him. Instead, her words carried something deeper. Outrage, yes, but also disbelief. He had crossed a line he did not know existed. I didn't mean, he began, but she silenced him with a raised claw. Her eyes closed, and she let out a long, shuddering breath. For the first time, her proud features seemed uncertain, weak, vulnerable. Silence hung between them, broken only by the distant crackle of fire and the calls of unseen creatures in the jungle. Daniel realized he had done something more than save her life. He had touched upon a cultural law he could not yet understand, something binding and sacred to her people. And now, whether he liked it or not, he had become part of it. He sat back against the wreckage, knife still within reach, though he doubted he would use it. The Queen shifted, her breathing slower now, steadier. She did not thank him, nor did he expect her to. But she also did not order his death. That in itself was something. As the night deepened, Daniel kept watch. He did not know if rescue would come, for him or for her. All he knew was that on this burning world, among the ruins of battle, a single act of compassion had changed everything. He had saved the life of his enemy's queen, and in doing so, he had stepped into a bond neither human nor Sarathi could easily break. The jungle whispered around them, alive with shadows. Daniel tightened his grip on his knife and glanced once more at the Queen. Her eyes were closed, but he knew she was not truly asleep. She was waiting, watching, measuring. Perhaps he thought so was he. The war between their peoples was not over. But tonight, on this battlefield of ashes, something new had begun. The jungle of Mirian was never silent. Even in the deep hours of the night, the air pulsed with the cries of hidden creatures, the rustle of unseen wings, and the distant roar of predators. Daniel Cross sat with his back to the wreckage, knife in hand, listening to every sound. His eyes drifted often to the alien queen lying only a few steps away. Her wound was stable now, though every shallow rise and fall of her chest reminded him how close she had been to death. She had not spoken again after her strange words. Only my consort may touch me there. But those words echoed in Daniel's mind. What had he done? Why would healing her be linked to something so personal, so sacred? He did not know the customs of the Sarathi. All he knew was that she had not killed him when she had the chance, and she had not cried out to summon help. That, for now, was enough. The Queen awakens at dawn. Pale light filtered through the trees, glowing on scales of green and gold. The Queen stirred, her amber eyes snapping open. For a moment she looked around wildly, then her gaze fixed on Daniel. He raised his hand slowly, showing he held no weapon except his small knife. Easy, you're safe. Well, as safe as either of us can be out here. Her eyes narrowed. She sat up with effort, one hand pressed against her side where the wound had been sealed. When she pulled her claws away, she studied the patch of human biogel with a mixture of disgust and wonder. You, she said in broken English, her voice low but strong. Why? Daniel hesitated. She spoke more of his language than he expected, though every word sounded as though it cost her effort. Why did I help you? He repeated softly. Because that's what we do. Humans don't leave people to die if we can save them, not even enemies. Her gaze sharpened. Enemy, yes, you kill Sarathi. We kill humans. He nodded grimly. War makes enemies. But out here in this jungle, it's just you and me. If you die, I'm alone. If I die, you're alone. Survival means working together. The Queen's crest flared slightly, a sign of tension, perhaps anger. She looked away, scanning the jungle. You touched where only Consort may touch. This is forbidden. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed though he had no reason to be. I didn't know. I was just trying to stop the bleeding. Still, she hissed, you broke sacred bond. He sighed. Maybe I did. But would you rather I let you die? Her silence was heavy. At last she looked back at him, and though her eyes still burned with pride, there was also something else. Curiosity, maybe doubt. The jungle trial. They could not stay by the wreck forever. Patrols would come, both human and Sarathi, and either side might see them as enemies. Daniel helped the Queen rise to her feet. She towered over him, her tall frame marked with strength despite her injury. Yet when she stumbled, it was his arm that steadied her. The Queen hissed in protest but did not pull away. You are small, she muttered. But strong. Thanks, Daniel said dryly. I'll take that as a compliment. They moved through the jungle slowly. Daniel kept watch for threats while the Queen led with surprising knowledge of the terrain. She pointed out plants that were poisonous, roots that were safe to eat, and paths less likely to draw predators. Though they came from opposite worlds, survival forced them into partnership. Once, when the screech of a hunting beast echoed nearby, the Queen pushed Daniel into cover with surprising protectiveness. The massive creature stalked past, its 6 legs thudding heavily against the ground, its jaws lined with teeth longer than Daniel's knife. When it was gone, Daniel looked at her in astonishment. You saved me, he said. "You saved me first," she replied simply, though her crest flicked with unease. The language of trust that night. They built a small shelter from fallen branches and leaves. Daniel's training as a soldier had taught him how to improvise. But the Queen's knowledge of Mirian's plants and wood made the structure sturdier than anything he could have managed alone. As they rested, Daniel decided to try something risky. He pointed at himself. "Daniel." The Queen tilted her head. "Donnell." Her tongue struggled with the sound, but she repeated it with determination. Then she touched her chest, her voice low and proud. "Serathin, Queen." "Serathin," Daniel repeated. "That's your name?" "Not name," she corrected. "Title, name. For consort only." Daniel frowned. "So only your consort knows your true name?" She nodded once, eyes glowing in the firelight. "Sacred. To speak name is to bind souls." Daniel exhaled slowly. He understood, at least a little, why his healing touch had shaken her so deeply. In her culture, what he had done was not simple medicine, it was intimacy, closeness, a bond that could not be easily erased. "Well, Queen," Daniel said at last, "until you decide otherwise, I'll just call you Serathin." She did not protest. The hunters, the fragile peace between them was tested the next day. A squad of Sarathi soldiers appeared in the jungle, their armor gleaming and their weapons sharp. Daniel and Serathin crouched in the undergrowth, listening as the soldiers spoke in their harsh tongue. Daniel glanced at her. "They're looking for you." Her jaw tightened. "Yes, they will not find me with human. They will kill you," he whispered. "Then we need to move." But the soldiers drew closer, scanning the ground. One bent low, examining tracks, Daniel's tracks. The Queen's claws tightened around her weapon, but her wound made her too weak to fight. Daniel knew what he had to do. He stepped out of hiding. The soldiers froze, weapons raised instantly. Daniel lifted his hands. "Wait," he called in English. "I don't want to fight," the Sarathi soldiers snarled, advancing. In that instant, Serathin rose from the brush, her voice a thunderous command in her own language. The soldiers froze again, their eyes widening as they recognized their queen. She stood tall despite her injury, pointing at Daniel. Her words were sharp, full of authority. Daniel could not understand them, but he recognized the effect. The soldiers lowered their weapons, confused but obedient. The Queen's gaze swept over them like fire. Then she stepped back toward Daniel, standing at his side. Her meaning was clear. She was protecting him. The soldiers looked stunned, but they did not dare question her. With a sharp gesture, she dismissed them, sending them away into the jungle. A new bond. When the soldiers were gone, Daniel stared at her in disbelief. "Why did you do that? They could have taken you home." Her golden eyes met his. "You saved my life. I cannot let them take yours." Daniel shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." Her crest lowered slightly, a gesture softer than before. "Perhaps not. But bond is made. Sacred or not, it is real." For the first time since he had met her, Daniel saw something in her expression that was not pride, not suspicion, but something gentler. Respect. As the night fell again, they sat together by the fire, two enemies bound by survival, by a forbidden gesture, and by a bond neither fully understood. The jungle of Mirian seemed endless, a tangled labyrinth of towering trees, thick vines, and hidden rivers that glinted in the sunlight. Daniel Cross moved carefully, his senses alert. Every step could reveal danger, hidden predators, hostile Sarathi patrols, or the unstable terrain itself. Yet he was no longer alone. By his side walked Serathin, the alien queen whose life he had saved. Her steps were slower than they would have been, still recovering from her wound, but she moved with purpose. Every so often she would glance at Daniel, her amber eyes reflecting both caution and curiosity. It was clear she was still trying to understand him, the strange human who had dared touch her in a way forbidden by her culture. The path of survival. Daniel led them along a narrow riverbank, the water clear and teeming with strange creatures that moved like shimmering shadows. He pointed out edible roots and berries while Serathin corrected him on which plants were dangerous. Using gestures and sounds, he gradually began to understand. "Do not touch," she warned once, pulling back his hand from a thorn-covered vine. Daniel nodded, grateful for the guidance. In this alien world, mistakes could be fatal. As they moved, Daniel noticed her observing him closely, not with anger, but as if she were studying a puzzle she could not yet solve. She watched how he moved silently through the undergrowth, how he analyzed the land, and how he adjusted to the unpredictable dangers of the jungle. "You adapt quickly," she said finally, her voice low and hesitant. "Human clever," Daniel shrugged. "We have to be if we want to survive. Out here, knowledge isn't just power, it's life." Her crest flicked, a subtle sign of approval. "Different from Sarathi. We follow orders, obey, do not question. You think." "I guess thinking has kept me alive," Daniel said with a small smile, though his eyes never stopped scanning the jungle. A shared danger. By midday, the sky darkened. Thick clouds gathered, and the smell of rain filled the air. Daniel knew that the heavy tropical storms of Mirian were both dangerous and disorienting. Streams could rise quickly, roots became slippery, and visibility dropped to almost nothing. As predicted, a sudden downpour began, drenching them both within seconds. The rain pounded like drumbeats against the canopy, and the undergrowth turned into mud. Daniel struggled to find secure footing while Sarathan hissed at the rain, her scales slick and reflective. Suddenly, a low growl echoed nearby. Daniel froze, scanning the trees. A predator emerged from the shadows, a massive quadruped with glimmering eyes and razor-sharp claws. It moved slowly but with purpose, sensing their presence. "Back," Sarathan commanded, her voice firm despite her weakened state. She raised a claw, her body tense and ready to strike. Daniel instinctively moved in front of her, positioning himself between the queen and the beast. "I've got this," he muttered, gripping his knife. But he knew from the size of the creature that this was no ordinary fight. Sarathan hissed at him sharply. "No, move. Protect us both." It was a silent agreement. They acted together, Daniel distracting the beast while Sarathan prepared to strike. With a sudden movement, she lunged, her claws slicing through the creature's side. It roared, staggering back, and Daniel saw an opening. Using his knife, he drove it into a weak spot near its leg. The creature stumbled, yelped in pain, and finally fled into the dense forest. Both Daniel and Sarathan exhaled heavily, their hearts pounding. "You saved," she said, still breathing hard. "Human. Brave." "You did too," he replied, noticing the effort it had taken her to strike despite her injury. "We make a good team." For a moment they allowed themselves a quiet smile, though the jungle around them remained alive with unseen dangers. Learning to communicate, as night fell, Daniel built a small camp. The rain had stopped, leaving the air cool and damp. They sat near a low fire, sharing the warmth and silence. Words were still limited, but gestures, expressions, and a few broken translations bridged the gap between human and Sarathi. Sarathan touched the fire cautiously, recoiling from the heat. Daniel laughed softly. "Not too close. That's how humans get burned." She tilted her head, intrigued. "Human, weak, fire, yet survive?" "Experience," Daniel said simply. "We learn from mistakes. We adapt." Her amber eyes studied him. "Adapt, not follow orders blindly?" "Exactly," Daniel said. "Sometimes survival means thinking for yourself, making choices others wouldn't dare make." A long silence followed. The queen seemed deep in thought, her body relaxed for the first time since the battle. Daniel realized that this shared survival, this fragile dependence, was changing something inside her. She had begun to see him not just as a human, not just as an enemy, but as an individual, a being capable of courage, creativity, and compassion. The secret of names over the next few days. They continued moving deeper into the jungle. Daniel noticed subtle changes in her behavior. She no longer flinched when he moved near her, though she still maintained a careful distance. Occasionally she would glance at him, her eyes searching as if weighing whether to trust him further. One evening, while the fire crackled, Daniel asked quietly, "Can I call you Sarathan?" She looked at him sharply. "Name. Sacred. I understand," he said, "but I promise to treat it with respect. I just want to connect, to understand you, not just your title." Her crest lowered slightly, a sign of contemplation. "Consort. Only one may speak true name." "I don't know what a consort is exactly," Daniel admitted, "but I know we've been through more than most humans and Sarathi ever do together." Maybe that's enough for now." The queen considered him for a long moment. Finally she whispered, "Sarathan, allow it." For now, Daniel felt a surge of relief. Even this small permission was a step forward, a recognition that their bond was growing despite centuries of enmity. a growing respect as they moved further. Daniel realized that survival depended not just on strength or cunning, but on respect and trust. The Queen's guidance kept them from deadly mistakes, while his strategies helped them evade patrols and predators. Each act of cooperation built something neither fully understood: mutual respect. One morning, Daniel spotted a cluster of alien fruit near a steep cliff. It looked poisonous to him, but Sarathan approached it carefully, plucking a sample and tasting it first. She handed him a piece and he nodded, learning her method. "Different worlds," he said softly, "but we can teach each other." Her eyes softened in the firelight. "Yes, human. Teach, survive, different, yes, yet strong together." The danger ahead. Despite their progress, danger loomed. Reports from scouts in the jungle hinted that the Sarathi military would not tolerate their queen's absence forever. Daniel knew that if her guards discovered her, both of them could be captured or worse. The jungle, as protective as it had been, could only shield them for so long. Yet in the quiet moments as they moved side by side through the foliage, Daniel sensed something extraordinary. He was learning the alien world, its dangers and its customs. Sarathan was learning something too, that humans could act with courage and empathy, that they could choose compassion even when the law of war demanded cruelty. This was more than survival. This was a first spark of understanding, a fragile bridge between two species that had only known conflict. A moment of reflection. That night, as Daniel kept watch while Sarathine rested, he looked at the firelight flickering against her scales. Her breathing was steady, her body less tense than it had been in days. He realized how much he had come to respect her, not as an enemy, not as an alien, but as a leader, a survivor, and a being capable of honor and thoughtfulness. In turn, he knew she was beginning to understand him. Not all humans, perhaps, but him. And that was a beginning. As the stars glimmered faintly above the canopy, Daniel whispered to himself, "We'll make it. Somehow we'll make it through this jungle. Together." He did not know what the future held, but for the first time, he felt hope, not just for himself, but for a fragile, unlikely alliance that could one day change everything between their worlds. And for Sarathan, even in her dreams, the image of the human who had saved her and dared touch what no other could remained. A reminder that sometimes strength and mercy could exist in the same being. The sun rose over the Mirian jungle, casting long shadows across the undergrowth. Daniel Cross and Sarathan moved carefully through the dense forest, aware that every rustle of leaves could signal danger. The past days had tested their endurance, skill, and trust, but nothing prepared them for what was about to come. A signal reached Daniel's communicator, faint but readable, a distress beacon from a nearby human reconnaissance team. He hesitated. Responding meant leading Sarathan closer to human forces, risking her exposure. Ignoring it risked leaving humans in danger. Survival in the jungle had taught him one thing: choices were never simple. Sarathan noticed his pause. "Decision?" she asked, her voice firm despite her still healing wound. "We help," Daniel said finally. "We can't leave them." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Human honor." The ambush, the journey to the source of the signal, was treacherous. Fallen trees blocked their path. Mud slowed their steps, and the creatures of Mirian roamed near. Despite these challenges, they moved with purpose, learning to anticipate each other's movements. Sarathan adjusted her pace to Daniel's, while he learned to watch for subtle signs of danger she could see with her sharp alien senses. When they finally neared the signal, a clearing opened before them. Daniel froze. The reconnaissance team was under attack by a group of Sarathi warriors. Their armor gleamed and weapons were drawn, aiming to capture or kill. The humans were outnumbered, pinned against a cliff with nowhere to run. "Stay back," Daniel whispered to Sarathan, though he knew it was impossible. She had fought beside him in the jungle before, and she would not hesitate now. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "They hunt them, or us?" "Both," Daniel said grimly. "They see no difference." With a silent agreement, they stepped into the clearing. Sarathan let out a commanding cry in her language. The Sarathi warriors froze, their attention torn between the humans and their queen. Daniel took advantage of the pause, signaling the human team to retreat behind cover. The battle Sarathan moved first, her claws flashing in the sunlight. Though weakened, her movements were precise and deadly, aimed to disable rather than kill. Daniel flanked her, using his agility and human ingenuity to create distractions and traps. Rocks were thrown, vines were twisted to trip pursuers, and crude but effective maneuvers slowed the attackers. The humans watched in amazement as their former enemy, now an ally, worked seamlessly with Daniel. It was a strange sight, a human and a Sarathi queen fighting side by side, neither leader giving orders to the other. Yet every action perfectly coordinated. One warrior broke through their defenses, lunging toward Daniel with a blade. Sarathine intercepted, her claws knocking the weapon aside. Daniel seized the moment, using a quick strike to disarm the intruder. The Sarathi stumbled, and then the team used the opening to escape. When the battle ended, the remaining warriors retreated, unwilling to defy their queen's authority. Daniel and Sarathine stood in the clearing, breathing heavily, surrounded by the quiet hum of the jungle. "You are clever," Sarathine said, her voice soft but firm. "Human, fight differently. You adapt." Daniel smiled faintly. "And you protect, even when it's dangerous for you." Her eyes met his, amber glowing with a mixture of respect and something he could not yet name. The Council of Shadows after the fight. Daniel insisted they move to a safer location. He had learned that the jungle could conceal them, but not forever. Sarathine led him to a hidden valley where the vegetation was thick and streams ran clear. As they rested, she began to speak more openly about her world. "Sarathi. Rules strict, queen. Must lead, must obey tradition. No weakness shown." Daniel listened, fascinated. "Humans are different. We follow leaders, but we question them. We fight wars, yes, but we also fight for others, not just ourselves." She tilted her head. "You're a compassion. Strange, yet strong. Sometimes strength comes from helping, not hurting," Daniel said. Her crest flickered, a sign he had begun to understand as thought or reflection. "Perhaps. You are right, I see it now." For the first time, she seemed less the untouchable ruler and more a being capable of doubt, growth, and understanding. The test of trust their rest was interrupted by distant sounds, a patrol of Sarathi soldiers, coming from the direction of the battle. Daniel realized they had to move again, but this time Sarathine insisted on a different plan. "You hide," she said. "You trust me?" Daniel hesitated. "I don't have a choice. But yes, I trust you." "Good," she said. She moved ahead, drawing the soldiers' attention while Daniel found cover. From the shadows, he watched her lead the patrol on a twisting chase, using her knowledge of the jungle to outsmart them at every turn. When the patrol was finally out of sight, she returned to him, unharmed. Daniel stood and offered a hand. She allowed him to help her up, and for the first time there was no tension between them when he touched her. "You learned quickly," she said, her voice softer now. "And you saved life." Again, Daniel nodded. "We survived together. That's what matters." The sacred gesture that night as they settled near a small stream, the conversation turned once again to the forbidden gesture, the one that had shocked Sarathine when he had first tended her wound. "You touch sacred place," she said, her voice low. "Only Consort may do this, yet you healed me." Daniel thought carefully. "I did not know. I only saw someone in pain, that's all, but maybe the bond can be something more than tradition. Maybe it can be trust." Her amber eyes softened. "Trust, yes. Stronger than law, perhaps. Human. You." "Surprising," he smiled faintly. "I guess humans are full of surprises." For the first time, she allowed herself to relax near him, leaning slightly against his shoulder. It was not intimacy as her culture might define it, but it was a step closer to understanding and partnership, a shared connection forged by danger, compassion, and survival. A glimpse of the future. The days that followed were filled with travel, evasion, and the careful exploration of the jungle. Daniel and Sarathine began to anticipate each other's movements, communicating silently through gestures and glances. The queen taught him more of her culture, her language, and her ways of survival. He in turn taught her about human ingenuity, improvisation, and the unexpected strength of compassion. Each night, they would sit near the fire exchanging stories in broken phrases, learning to respect the vast differences between their worlds. They laughed at mistakes, celebrated small victories, and began to understand that true leadership was not about domination, but about courage, adaptability, and the care of those who relied on you. Daniel realized that in saving her life, he had done more than just act out of duty. He had become part of something larger, something that could bridge two civilizations. And Sarathan, in turn, began to see that humans were not the simple enemies she had once believed them to be. The calm before the storm as they paused at the edge of a cliff, overlooking the dense jungle below. Daniel glanced at Sarathan. "We've made it this far," he said. "But I know the real test is still ahead." Her gaze followed his, distant and thoughtful. "Yes, trials come. But now we face them together." Daniel nodded. There was something about her words that filled him with hope. They had survived the jungle, outwitted soldiers, and built a bond that transcended culture and war. The future remained uncertain, but they had proven that even enemies could become allies through courage, trust, and understanding. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Daniel and Sarathan stood side by side. The jungle was quiet now, almost peaceful. For the first time since the battle, he allowed himself to believe that they might not only survive but change the course of the war, and perhaps the future of both their peoples. The trial was not over. The true challenges lay ahead, but for now they had survived, together. The jungle of Mirian was alive with the quiet hum of the night. Daniel Cross stood beside Sarathan on a small ridge, overlooking a valley that stretched for miles. The distant lights of Sarathi patrols flickered like stars trapped in the trees. He had never felt more aware of the danger surrounding them, yet he also felt something extraordinary, a sense of unity, a bond forged through fire, trust, and survival. Sarathan adjusted her stance, scanning the forest below. Despite her still healing wound, she radiated strength and authority. Daniel knew that their journey had changed her and him forever. "The patrols are increasing," Daniel said softly. "Soon they may not be looking for just us. They may be coming for the humans we helped too." She nodded. "Yes, and soon decisions must be made." The approach of the enemy as they moved through the valley. The sounds of Sarathi warriors became clearer. The rhythmic thud of boots on soil, the clinking of weapons, the calls in their harsh commanding tongue. Daniel's hand rested lightly on the grip of his sidearm. His training told him to be ready, but he had learned that brute force alone would not win this battle. Strategy, adaptability, and the trust between him and Sarathan were their strongest weapons. They hid in the undergrowth, observing a small unit of soldiers moving with precise coordination. Daniel whispered, "They're organized. They know the terrain well. If we confront them head-on, we lose." Sarathan's eyes glinted with determination. "No head-on. Trickery, strategy, human way, yes?" Daniel nodded. "Exactly. We use what they don't expect. That's the advantage humans have." The plan together, they devised a plan. Using the jungle to their advantage, they set traps along the patrol routes. Daniel cut vines and rigged them to swing like pendulums, while Sarathan prepared hidden pitfalls covered with leaves and branches. The traps were simple but clever, relying on timing and precision rather than brute strength. By nightfall, the patrols were walking into the carefully laid ambushes. Soldiers tripped, stumbled, and found themselves caught in vines or hidden pits. Confusion spread among their ranks. Daniel and Sarathan moved like shadows, coordinating silently, their trust in each other absolute. Finally, the patrols retreated in disarray, their morale shattered. Daniel and Sarathan stood together on a high ridge, watching the last stragglers disappear into the jungle. For the first time since the battle began, there was a moment of quiet victory, the declaration. As the dawn broke, painting the jungle in soft gold and green, Sarathan turned to Daniel. Her amber eyes were bright, but her expression was serious. "You saved lives, not just mine, others too. Human courage, honor, remarkable." Daniel felt a mix of pride and humility. "We survived together. That's what matters." She hesitated, then took a bold step forward. "I declare you—" "My consort," Daniel froze. The words echoed in his mind. A consort, a title of immense significance in Sarathi culture. It was more than a bond. It was a recognition of equality, trust, and sacred connection. I don't know if I'm worthy," he said softly. Her gaze was steady. "Worthiness, not measured by tradition alone. It is measured by actions. You healed me, protected lives, trusted, and earned trust. That is enough." Daniel swallowed hard, realizing that this declaration was not about him personally. It was about what humans could achieve: compassion, courage, and ingenuity. Something no amount of technology or brute force could replace. The journey home with their bond officially recognized, Daniel and Sarathan began the journey back to Sarathi territory. Their path was cautious, avoiding patrols and dangerous wildlife. Along the way, Daniel taught her human strategies for evasion, survival, and communication, while she continued to guide him through the intricate jungle with her keen senses. Every step strengthened their partnership. Daniel noticed subtle changes in her: less suspicion, more openness, and occasional moments of humor and curiosity about human behavior. Sarathan, in turn, seemed fascinated by his ingenuity, adaptability, and moral courage. By the time they reached the outskirts of Sarathi territory, they were no longer just human and alien. They were a team, a symbol of what could be achieved when two worlds learn to understand each other. The Council of the Queen, entering the Sarathi capital, was a challenge. The city's towering spires and luminous structures reflected the glory and discipline of Sarathi culture. Daniel felt a mixture of awe and apprehension. Many Sarathi had never seen a human in their city, let alone one who was the Queen's consort. At the council chambers, the elders and advisors awaited, their expressions a mixture of shock, anger, and curiosity. Sarathan spoke first, her voice commanding yet calm. "This human, Daniel Cross, has earned a place beside me. He saved my life, protected others, and showed qualities beyond mere strength. I declare him my consort. He is to be trusted and honored." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some elders whispered furiously, questioning her choice. Others exchanged uncertain glances, seeing the courage and wisdom she had praised. Daniel stepped forward cautiously. I do not seek power. I do not seek glory. I only acted as any human would when confronted with life in danger. I hope this can be a start for our peoples to understand each other better." Silence followed, then a few of the younger council members nodded in respect. The Queen's decision was final, but the courage of the human beside her had begun to sway even the staunchest skeptics. A symbol of unity, in the days that followed, Daniel worked alongside Sarathan to repair bridges between humans and Sarathi. His actions, compassion, strategy, and courage were highlighted as examples of what humans could bring to the alliance. Sarathan spoke often of him in public assemblies, emphasizing not only his bravery but the shared bond between their species. For Daniel, it was surreal. He had started as a lone soldier in a jungle filled with enemies. Now he stood as a symbol of cooperation, a bridge between two civilizations that had once fought each other without mercy. Yet, through it all, Sarathan remained at his side, not just as a ruler, but as a partner, equal in respect and shared purpose. Their bond was not merely ceremonial. It was forged through life and death challenges, trust, and understanding. A quiet moment. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Daniel and Sarathan walked along a quiet terrace overlooking the city. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow on the spires and the gardens below. "You changed," Sarathan said softly. "Not just my view of humans, but of myself. You showed me strength is more than control. Compassion can be power too," Daniel smiled. "And you've shown me that courage can come in many forms. Even in someone who seems untouchable." She tilted her head, her eyes softening. "Yes, untouchable. No more. Only my consort may touch me. Now in trust, not fear." Daniel felt a warmth in his chest. This was more than a promise or title. It was the recognition that humanity had a place not just in her world, but as a partner in shaping the future, the dawn of a new era. The story of Daniel Cross and Sarathan spread throughout Sarathi territory and beyond. Humans were no longer seen as mere invaders or enemies. They were beings capable of bravery, empathy, and ingenuity, traits that even the most disciplined Sarathi could respect. Daniel's actions became lessons for both species. Compassion could save lives, courage could inspire allies, and trust could bridge even centuries of enmity. Sarathan's decision to name him consort was not simply personal, it was symbolic. It represented the possibility of a future where humans and Sarathi could coexist, learn from each other, and grow stronger together. As Daniel and Sarathan stood together on the terrace, watching the stars begin to twinkle in the Merian sky, he realized something profound. The true power of humanity was not in weapons, technology, or numbers. It was in the choices humans made, the courage to act with honor, to help even when it was risky, and to trust when trust seemed impossible. And in that moment, with the alien queen at his side, Daniel understood that they had not only survived, they had changed the future of two worlds forever. The jungle below, the city before them, and the endless stars above all seemed to whisper the same truth. Humanity, in its heart and spirit, could shine brighter than any alien empire, stronger than fear, and wiser than tradition alone. And for Seraphim, the queen, she knew that her consort, human, brave, compassionate, was not just a partner. He was a bridge to hope, a symbol of unity, and a reminder that sometimes the smallest act of mercy could echo across the galaxy.